So Matt, if you could tip us the wink when that's actually coming through.
Closed down. And
Yes, so we're live.
That's great. Thank you, Matt. So, Mr. Chairman, if I pass the proceedings over to you to start.
Thank you very much indeed, Owen. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this meeting of the Policy Panel on the 3rd of March 2021. This meeting is being broadcast live via Zoom over the internet on the Council's YouTube channel and will be also available to watch afterwards. To begin with, there are a few matters of housekeeping, with the exception of the Democratic Services Officer advising us, would participants all please mute their microphones unless they are asked to speak. I will ask for each item of business to be presented and then ask each member of the panel in turn if they wish to ask a question or comment. At the end of each item of business, the Democratic Services Officer will ask each panel member in turn to confirm audibly how they wish to vote on any recommendations or resolutions made. We may have a break at 7:30, subject to the progress of business. I'm now going to go around the room and ask members of the panel and officers and guests to introduce themselves, and I will do that in the following order. Councillor Christopher Arnold, please.
yes, Councillor Christopher Arnold. I represent Rural North Ward, which is everything from Tendring right across the Braintree.
Thank you. Councillor Phil Coleman.
Good evening, Councillor Phil Coleman, Marling Ward.
Councillor Derek Loveland.
Councillor Derek Loveland from Tiptree Ward.
Councillor Lee Scordis.
Lee Scordis from Old Heath, Ivanhoe Hedge.
Councillor Martin Warnes.
Councillor Martin Warnes, Beer Church and Vice Chair of this committee.
Thank you. And I'm Councillor Sam McCarthy, representing Shrub End Ward and Chair of the committee. We do have one substitution this evening. Councillor Robert Davison, the Mayor, is going to be joining us shortly, and he is substituting for Councillor Jowers. Item 3 is urgent. I do apologise. I'm going to introduce the officers now. I do beg your pardon. I'll start with you, Owen, if I may.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Owen Howell, Democratic Services Officer and Clerk to the committee.
Thank you. Rosa Tanfield.
I'm Rose Tanfield. I'm the Group Manager for Neighbourhood Services.
Thank you. Rory Doyle.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Rory Doyle. I'm Assistant Director for Environment.
Stephen Collis, if he's on the line.
I'm Stephen Collis. I'm Parks, Contracts and Volunteering Specialist.
Thank you. And Councillor Julie Young.
Hi, Councillor Julie Young. I'm Cabinet Member for Culture, Performance and the Local Plan.
Thank you. And John Marsh.
Hi, good evening everybody. I'm John Marsh, an APSI Associate, assisting with the grounds maintenance contract.
Thank you very much, everyone. So back to item 3, there are no urgent items. Item 4 is declarations of interest. Do we have any declarations this evening? No, thank you very much. On to item 5, which is minutes of the last meeting. I take it everyone's had a chance to glance through them. I will take a nod of approval. All agreed? Excellent. Are we happy with that, Owen?
Yep, happy with that, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. Item 6 is have your say. No members of the public wish to speak, and we don't have any visiting councillors indicating they wish to speak either. Item 7 is public initiatives. I'm afraid we don't have any of those. So now, rather than go on to item 8, we're going to switch it and have item 9 first, which is a presentation on heritage signage. And we're very lucky to be joined by Councillor Julie Young, who's the portfolio holder for Culture and Performance and Deputy Leader of the Council. So I'll pass over to you, Councillor Young.
Thank you very much, Chair, and good evening, members. This item is about heritage signage. I think back to when I was Mayor of Colchester, and we had a meeting at the time with the Blue Badge Guides, and signage and heritage interpretation was one of the things that they were very interested in. And we've had lots of discussions, not only at the policy panel, but in other forums during the course of my tenure as Cabinet Member for Culture, Performance and the Local Plan. So I know it's a significant interest of members of this panel, and it has been on the Task and Finish group as well, which has come to an end. So if I run through the current work, look at the items I think that came up in discussion before, Chair, and perhaps dwell on the future projects as well at the end of that. So current work is very much focused on the Roman Church, which is in Butt Road. We've done quite a bit of work there, and we're putting in a new interpretation board at that site. That's not likely to be unveiled until after the elections, because we'll soon be entering the pre-election period. So that will become on stream probably in May. In addition to that, we've been focusing on St Bottles, and this is being, the funding for that has been led by the Civic Society. So, and they've been really successful in getting external grants to fund the work that we're planned there. And again, that will be unveiled probably in May 2021, just after the local elections. That will include a new memorial in the form of a bronze plaque dedicated to Captain Jesse Jones, who was a Waterloo veteran that's in St Bottles Churchyard. Just turning to items that members have raised in this meeting and in others. There's been an application made to the Mile End Community Council for an interpretation panel to be displayed at St Michael's and All Angels in Mile End. We had a site meeting, it seems like an eternity ago now, Martin, at the Beer Church Dyke with the landowner there, which is the Defence Estates. And we've followed that up with looking for an application for funding for a new interpretation panel there. And the outcome of that application is expected soon. Members were very concerned with the closure of the Paxman site, and that we should do something about using the items that they have there to have that in some sense to signify the contribution of Paxman's over the years. And there's a working group working to see how we can interpret the Paxman's legacy, perhaps in our built environment. So that work continues in liaison with Man Energy Solutions. Other sites that were previously discussed, Chair, was the Town to Port Trail. Those interpretation boards are in a poor state. And there's some options appraisals that have been put together, and that will be looked at soon by me. The Ordny Chapel was mentioned. It's not considered that that's a priority at the moment because there is already information available at the chapel itself in a guidebook and online. A digital copy as the guidebook is there as well. And there's very little passing traffic to that site, so visitors would have to know that the chapel was there before they actually sort of came across it. In respect of Grimes Dyke, again, there's an existing panel already there at Dugard Avenue. On Lexton Dyke, also known as the Lexton Triple Dyke, which is an English heritage site, and that already has a single interpretation panel there. Turning to Holy Trinity Church, there's an existing panel about the church itself, but it doesn't currently mention Captain Pinto, who fought in the Battle of Trafalgar. So there's currently no public access to the churchyard whilst the future of the church is being settled. So at the moment, that project is on hold. Regarding Lexton Park, there's no interpretation at this site, which is, of course, a really important site for its natural history and archaeology. And although the need is recognised by us, there's currently no funding identified for that site, but it's something we'll be turning to in the future when funding allows. So at the moment, there's no active work on that site. St Charles Church, although this site deserves to be better known because of its medieval and civil history, there is again no funding identified. And likewise, no active work taking place at this moment. I think the Mayor's joining us, Chair. Welcome, Mr. Mayor. So future projects. The Roman Circus, obviously that is a significant site, and we've got money in the budget to provide interpretation boards there, and we're working with the Colchester Archaeological Trust to build on the interpretation work already done by the Trust, as well as raising awareness of the presentation of the site at the Roman Circus Centre. It's planned that we'll install 2 interpretation panels at the site later this year. In respect of hilly fields, which is another area that's mentioned by, I think, discussions by members of this panel, but also by members of the public as well. They are in a very sorry state there, and we do need to replace them, but we're looking at the possibility of attracting external funding from local heritage organisations, and we're currently pursuing that. And I think, Chair, that gives you a full update on all of the sites that we're currently working on and hope to work on in the future. Happy to take questions.
Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Young. Just going through that list that you mentioned, that's ticked off an awful lot of what was discussed a couple of months ago by this panel. So I'm really, really grateful for that. And I totally understand the situation with funding for some of these interpretation boards and others. I will open it up to questions, if that's okay, Councillor Young. I don't see any hands up at the moment, but don't know if anybody wants to chip in with any comments or questions. No, we all satisfied with the update. I will say I'm really grateful that you're here to give us an update. And this was a public initiative that came in last year, so I would like to go back and contact that member of our borough to let them know where we are with this as well. With that in mind, then I'll let you go, Councillor Young. That was very kind of you. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Good evening.
And to you. Okay, so that moves us on to, well, back from item 9 onto item 8. I just want to welcome Councillor Davison, who has joined us now. Good evening, Councillor Davison. Okay, so item 8 is review of the future delivery of grounds maintenance. Our recommended decisions this evening are to take forward a report to Cabinet on the 10th of March with the recommendation at this pre-business case stage of a new in-house operating model to deliver grounds maintenance as described in this report, and for a detailed business case to be brought back to the policy panel for review before final recommendations go to Cabinet for a formal decision on the operating model to be delivered at the end of the current grounds maintenance contract. Rosa, I will pass on to you if that's okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So the paper presents the process that the policy panel have undertaken since their last meeting. The panel will recall that the policy panel were asked to be involved in reviewing what the future operating models might be at the end of the current contract. The current contract is with ID Verdi. The contract commenced in 2016 and is due to expire in October 2023. There is possible options to extend that contract as well, and any notice to extend or not to needs to be given in April 2022. And so the council wants to review all of the potential options that might be available to it at the end of the contract as early as possible, hence the involvement of the policy panel in reviewing that. And the report just outlines the process that we have been through. So some objectives were set. and through some consultation work, surveys, etc., with both internal stakeholders and external stakeholders, including parish councils, sports groups and volunteer groups, we've now got to a position where we've described in a bit more detail those objectives, and therefore able to describe the kind of service that our residents and the borough would like to see, hear and feel in terms of grounds maintenance from 2023 and beyond. And through that piece of work, we then explored a number of case studies of examples of different service models and delivery models that match those objectives that are being delivered across the UK. And in reviewing that, the panel came to a conclusion of looking at an in-house delivery model that also make in that delivery model, making sure that we included community engagement and involvement, clearer reporting and transparency, flexibility in the work undertaken, and looking at contracting smaller specialist works, and also synergy across those four objectives. Those four objectives being around a community asset-based approach, so enabling and supporting communities, exemplary management around the environment, so making sure that biodiversity, sustainability and ecology is at the heart of everything that we do, robust budget management control, so making sure that we get best value, but also looking to drive a budget reduction as well, outlined in the report, and something that is transformative, something that can take the service beyond 2023 sustainably, so being able to flex to a changing environment, etc. The report also just covers off risk, because this is a pre-business case proposal, and obviously as officers start to work through the business case proposal, there is potential risk that that option or that direction of travel might not be viable, and it outlines within that how the council might wish to address that. And then the proposal, as you've explained, Chair, is for that business case, that proposal, more detailed proposal, comes back to this policy panel by way of a check to make sure that those objectives that have been described are being delivered in that proposal, and again check that viability of the proposal before it then gets to Cabinet for final sign-off before the date of April 2022, when a final decision has to be made. So that's a quick summary. Back to you, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, and thank you for such a quick turnaround on this. Yes, it's quite an impressive report, really. Panel, we've got a couple of things to agree tonight. Has anyone got any questions or comments? I don't see any hands up. This could be, again, like the the briefing meeting was only 10 minutes long. This can only be about half hour long at this rate. Councillor Coleman, now we're talking.
It's just very quick one, Rosa. We're looking to save £100,000. Is that fixed in stone, or initially would we not save any? Would we save less? Would we save more? Is that a flexible figure, given that we're probably going to have to bring in human and physical and other resources? So is that a fixed figure, or is it a target or an ambition along those lines?
The forecast, it's built within the mid-term financial forecast, the £100,000 annual savings. So that's already built in there. Bear in mind that the current contract finishes in October, so it's a mid-year ending, unless obviously we look at an extension. And as part of the business case proposals that we'll be developing, we'll be making sure that that is, whether it can actually be achieved viably. We are fully aware that, and is set out in the report, there is legislation around 2P transfers, the transfer of staff, etc. We'll need to look at asset investments and all of those kind of details. So that would be part of the business case that we'll be building, and which will come back to this policy panel, just to make sure that, you know, it is a viable option, meets those objectives and those targets.
Happy with that, Councillor Coleman? Yeah. Thank you very much indeed, Rosa. Councillor Davison, please.
Yep. Thank you very much, Chairman. And my apologies for the delay. The roads were very wet tonight, so I was late home. Rosa, thank you. I haven't had a chance to study the report in detail, but I'm very conscious that, of course, we used to run it in-house. It was then let out on this contract. As far as I'm concerned, in my ward, generally they've performed very well. But my concern really is that, you know, have all the financial costs really been considered, and that is the TUPing people back into the service, all the skill set as well, whether you are confident we can get enough skill set to do the job well. And the advantage of an outside contractor, of course, is that you can have carrots and sticks to monitor and manage their performance. And I'm not sure whether within house it'll be quite as easy as that. I just wondered whether you got any comments.
Yes, it is a good question. Thank you for asking. So as part of the process that we have gone through with the policy panel is to explore all the different types of operating models, in-house being one of them, but also looking at cooperatives and retendering. And in terms of the question, your question around costings, skill sets, etc., that's all now part of this business element that we need to now analyse. The purpose and the process that we've gone through is to now be able to clearly explain the kind of service, the kind of things we would expect to see from grounds maintenance, regardless of what delivery model. But the panel have then looked at different types of delivery models, which now the recommendation is to explore in-house. So this isn't a definitive decision of the council, it's just a direction of travel that now allows myself, my team and officers to explore in much more detail to make sure that we've got the costings in place, that what do we require in terms of resources, but we've got a much clearer picture as to what our residents, what our stakeholders and councillors would like in terms of delivering. So that matches things like community engagement, better reporting, and all of those things that I've explained earlier.
Okay, thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Rosa. The only thing I didn't mention, of course, is that, and having been a previous member of the trading board panel, there's an awful lot of the services that we were trying to operate at, profitably, if that's the right word, were actually hamstrung by the back office charge from all the council back office, effectively, and that often put us into the red, when actually the day-to-day service, if it had been independent, wouldn't have been hampered by those back office costs. And I just want to make sure you include those when you're comparing like with like.
Yes, we will make sure that we've accounted all of the necessary costs to make sure that it is a viable option for the council.
Thank you very much, Councillor Davidson, for the question there, and thank you, Rosa. I don't see any more hands up, so I'm just going to take this opportunity to... oh, Councillor Arnold, I saw a waving hand there, an old-fashioned hand, if you will.
An old-fashioned hand, Chairman, because I don't... Oh, I have got the panel on here. It says I'm muted. Am I muted, or can you hear me?
We can hear you.
You can hear me, huh? I don't know. There was something a point I raised when I asked when I completed the questionnaire, which barely comes through here, and if it's simply, and I can believe it would be true, if it's simply that I was sort of, the remark was so far away from the topic, so far off topic that it wasn't relevant. But it was about the fitness use of our open spaces, and we were invited to sort of make some comment at the end about the biodiversity and sort of the benefit for the environment of looking after our space as well. But it struck me that there was nothing there at all, and in fact there's barely anything in this report about enabling our open spaces to be better able to support people who are trying to get fit. And it just occurred to me, because certainly as one, it's not bragging, but as one runs around the limited amount of sort of circuit that one can do in this village, people are out there and that includes the Jubilee Green, which is managed by Colchester Borough Council, people are out there as never before, sort of running and doing all sorts of things that lockdown permits them to do by way of exercise. And I do wonder when that's, when we come out of lockdown, whether as a nation we are going to want to exercise more, and whether there's any way within this that we ought to be just making sure that not only do we manage in-house or not, and I don't have a problem with in-house, but we not only manage our the whole of the estate that we're talking about in a way that's better for the environment and for biodiversity, but we also manage it in a way that encourages people to use it to keep themselves fit. Because I think that's where we're going, isn't it? If the Prime Minister's initiative on fitness is to be sort of given sort of taken at face value, then what we've got, we've got Park Run who do a park run round Castle Park. I'm not, and we've got one or two people. I mean, certainly here on the Jubilee Green here in Hawksley, there's a guy who does football training on a Saturday morning for very small children, and wonderful it is to watch too. But whether there's any scope for making sure that as this is worked up, this is sort of worked up into a decision that the Cabinet will consider in 3 years, we actually consider making sure that our open spaces are literally more attractive to people who want to use them to keep fit. Now, I'm going to stop there because I'm sure I've got the meaning across, but I'd just like other panel members' views on that, please.
Thank you, Councillor Arnold. I do see Councillor King's hand up, and I'll just bring him in if that's okay.
It's very kind of you, Chair. I wanted to respond to Councillor Arnold, Chair, just to say what Councillor Coleman, whose hand is up, and has done far more sport than all the rest of us put together, I suspect, we will know, which is that a lot of what's being done, and it may not always be connected in the public eye, and I think that's a good point for us, wherever that task may go, is about activity in the sense of recognising a deficit, and that's a health and well-being deficit as well, and acknowledging that we've got a role to play. And so just a sort of reminder for us all, really, we've got east, west, north, south cycleways being worked through, and Councillor Scordis knows this well. He also has to spend hours on this, but we are making progress with county, and in a fairly good tempered way. These things can lose that spirit. That will be an important step in terms of at least providing safe space for activity in a public realm sense. We've got the orbital, which it's taken a while to get the traction, but as the officers on this call know, between us, we have got some more to add to the work of Rowena McCauley and others in Walk Colchester. We're going to be putting signage up on that in, I hope, the next few months. I'm really looking forward to that. And we're looking to green it, and we're looking to make more of it. And it gets a lot of social media traction. So in ways that old-fashioned boys like me don't always see, there are people who've kind of got that ring between urban and rural around Colchester is available for them. And we as a council are promoting it. And the last thing I'd just sort of say, because it's tangible evidence and that's best, is at Northern Gateway Sports Park, we've got a fantastic potential for walking and running because it connects with nearby roads and pavements, and there's a lot of area inside that large patch of land which is just a great place. Family tell me they're already going in through I shouldn't say this, should I, in through back fences to get in there, run round, and they're not the only ones. So there is progress. It is part of the thinking, but I really welcome the prompt because I think we can make sure we take that away in an integrated way. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Councillor King. That's helpful. Councillor Coleman, please.
Many thanks, Chair. To back up Councillor Arnold, I've spent 30 odd years trying to get people to take exercise and stay fit. Sometimes I win, sometimes I lose, but I think this is an absolute significant tipping point. We've had COVID, and I think everyone's recognised that getting out for a walk, cycling, going out for a run, more so now with COVID, that we need to look at ourselves and obesity and our levels of fitness and mental health through walking. And we have got some fantastic places in the borough. For me, I'd put it in the contract, Rosa. our grounds team, whoever it is and whichever way we go, have to maintain these walks and these runs, because it is going to be absolutely paramount. I mean, we keep on talking about physical and mental well-being. If you've got nowhere to go, you've got nowhere to walk, you've got nowhere to run, the bushes and the brambles are coming through and overhanging a decent walkway. So it's that sort of vision where, what have we got? Can we maintain it? Is it safe? They're not going to trip up. There's not a tree stump that's in the way of a run or a walk. So I would absolutely back that, Councillor Arnold. And I would also say the Northern Gateway, it's not just a sports or rugby club and a cycle track. I think someone said it's a 20 or 30-minute walk around the outside on purpose-built paths. Perhaps we need to put some more purpose-built paths around some of the areas. I've walked Highwoods Country Park. It's an absolute mud bath. Some decent paths around the outside of there would enhance that walk even better, rather than walking in welly boots up to your ankles. So there could be some real work done to enhance what we've already got, and perhaps even look at others like the Orbital as well. So yeah, gets my vote. Absolutely, Councillor Arnold, but you're preaching to the converted here as well.
Well said, Councillor Coleman. Back to Councillor Arnold, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I was actually sort of thinking back, and I'm most grateful to Phil Coleman for that. And of course, it's his ward and Councillor King's ward. I mentioned the mud myself in that rather ill-tempered budget debate. The mud in Highwoods Country Park. But the difficulty there is that people have established running tracks and running routes, and in the fair weather, of course, those running routes, they tend to use the same one, or they select from the same few. Weather like this, people can't get into the country park because those routes are not runnable. Also in Mile End, and of course it's right on my doorstep. My granddaughter and I take the exercise that we're permitted to take, meeting one other person outside, and we do it on places like Mile End Recreation Ground that has ditches round it, and the ditches are brimming over. They've got to the point where it's extraordinary. This is our land. It's extraordinarily difficult to cross our land and access a public footpath via a bridge, because the whole lot is so swampy. And these are established exercise routes on borough land, and they become impassable. I know it's not possible to keep them sort of pristine all the time. We've had some foul weather recently, but if that were there, yeah, I'm grateful to Councillor Coleman for what he said, because that's absolutely the heart of it.
Thank you very much, Councillor Arnold. Rory Doyle, please.
Thank you, Chair. Just to say, really, I agree with all of the comments here. I think health and well-being and the potential to improve the health and well-being of our residents and visitors is very much a cross-cutting theme, isn't it? It's something that we need to embed within all our strategies and projects, and absolutely it will be part of this. I've spotted actually on the paper that we're taking to Cabinet, which is a summary of this. I think it is picked up in that particular paper on the health, wellbeing and community development kind of contributions that this project can add to that. I'll just also add, so members are aware that Colchester is part of a wider project with colleagues in Essex, the local delivery pilot, which is absolutely all about weaving in the opportunity for our residents to be more physically active, and how we take every opportunity in things that perhaps aren't overtly about physical activity, leisure and sport. So I thought I'd bring that to the attention, because there are lots of projects going on across the council, ones that we in the Environment Service and Parks and Recs will equally work alongside, to hopefully encourage people who are already active to carry on, and perhaps those people who are somewhat more sedentary and there may be barriers to them being physically active, to encourage them to do that. And our open spaces in our parks and the green spaces and communities will play a significant part in that. So it's exciting times, and we'll absolutely consider this and incorporate it within our approach going forward.
Thank you very much, Rory. I think that wraps up that little conversation nicely there. So thank you everyone for your contributions. Before we take it to a vote, I just want to ask if John Marsh wanted to say anything, and I just want to thank him for his hard work up to this point with what we're trying to do here. So John, was there anything you wanted to say in summary?
Right, thank you, Chair, for that. But thanks for all the comments. Yeah, I fully agree with everything there. Certainly making sure, if we're looking at an in-house option, as Councillor Davison mentioned, it is important that we do make sure that all costs, so we get in a fair representation. We've done some benchmarking exercises around that, but certainly that'll be one part of any business case going forward, a detailed financial assessment of it. I think the other thing, just to fully agree with all the issues, it's not just about biodiversity, but I think one of the key things for me about grounds maintenance in the next 10 years is going to completely change. You know, the thing of, you know, just going along with a mower and cutting lots and lots of grass, creating green deserts everywhere, those days are coming to an end. So it's going to, we're going to be looking at different operations, and that. So I think that's important. And it's not just going to be about biodiversity. It is about people's well-being and health, and fully important. And as somebody who, you know, runs myself, does park runs, you see the growing influence of that. So I think one of the other advantages about if we're looking at an in-house model is the flexibility that we can get. I think also, I mean, it came across at the last policy panel workshop we did about the skills, you know, a lot of councillors mentioned about the skills that are already available in-house and that we've got, and how we can better utilise those. So there's options there where we can, you know, look at some form of flexibility within the workforce that we've got, the workforce that's trooping across, and how we can develop that and use it for best case. So yeah, Chair, that I think Rosa summed everything else up that I'd have wanted to say. So thank you. Thanks for the opportunity.
Absolutely, and thank you as well. Okay, then, if there's nobody else with their hands up, I will ask Owen to administer the vote for the two recommendations that we have tonight. So we'll vote on both of them. Owen, over to you.
Righto. So, as usual, I shall go through panel members in alphabetical order based on surnames. So please give me your votes when called upon, either for the recommendations, against the recommendations, or let me know if you'd wish to abstain instead. So starting off with Councillor Arnold.
For the recommendations.
For. Councillor Coleman.
Yep, for the recommendations, totally for.
For. Councillor Davidson.
Yes, for again.
For. Councillor Loveland.
Yes, for.
For. Councillor McCarthy.
For.
For. Councillor Scordis.
For.
For. And Councillor Warnes.
For.
For. So I make that a unanimous vote to approve those two recommendations, Mr. Chairman.
Happy days. Thank you very much indeed. Well, thank you very much, Rosa. Thank you, Rory. And thank you, John. And I'll see you in the next municipal year. Whether I'm chair or not, I don't know. How this panel looks next year, I don't know. But thank you very much indeed. Okay, so we then move on to item 10, which is the work programme. This is the last meeting of the municipal year. The only item to be scheduled next year is the review of the white paper on local government restructuring once published. So we're kind of in limbo land with that. Owen, was there anything more to add?
Not at this stage, but I just wanted to cover something that was raised during the chairman's briefing prior to this meeting. Councillor Arnold picked up on a past review that we did, an item looking at options for the high street, and which then led into a session where we looked at pedestrianisation considerations. But Councillor Arnold's asked me just to check where that has got to with regard to the recommendations that the panel was made. So I'm going to check up on that, see what has happened from that, and then potentially what we could do is schedule an item for the next municipal year, just to give a recap on that if panel so minded, and potentially to explore any options that panel would like to have a look at, because you have cabinet approval to look at this this issue, so there's nothing to stop you coming back to see where we are and if there's any recommendations the panel wishes to make.
Excellent, thank you very much, Owen. Yes, I don't think that would be unwise at all.
Oh.
I saw Councillor Coleman's hand come up, but Councillor Coleman, if that's okay, I'm just going to come to Councillor Arnold very, very quickly, because it'll be.
What I was going to say, Chairman, was in view of this afternoon's announcement about the 18.2 million for the town deal in Colchester, I imagine it's going to be quite a hot topic for the next next municipal year.
Quite, yeah.
I shall watch from the sidelines with interest, because I'm about to. This is my last committee meeting of any sort after 26 years. So yes.
Yes, and absolutely, and I was going to say, and maybe this is an apt time to say, I know, probably not the right thing to say to an opposition party, but it has been a pleasure working with you, Councillor Arnold, over the last few months on this panel, and of course for the 26 or so years that you've served this wonderful borough.
Thank you. I will say that last year's chairman went so far as to send me a card to say thank you, Chairman. So I must be getting something either right or completely wrong politically. Thank you very much.
Who knows?
And thank you, Phil.
Absolutely. Councillor Coleman, please.
It's something I picked up over the weekend that other towns and in London, they're certainly looking at it, is a memorial for COVID victims, and also for those that are struggling and have worked so hard to support those through COVID. It might not happen this year, it might not happen next year, but I'd like to sort of propose that the borough looks at something along those lines. In London, they were looking at a circle of highly colourful trees, where perhaps in decades to come, people might be able to come and just have a quiet, peaceful time in our sort of memorial. It could be a tree, it could be a plaque, it could be a circle of bushes and trees. So it's just looking at something. What can we do for the victims? What can we do for a thank you to all our key workers, the doctors and nurses and teachers and delivery drivers in this borough, and anybody else that supported this dreadful time. So I'm just going to not throw it out there, but half propose it. Is it something we can look at? Have we got somewhere? Obviously costs, etc., but I'd certainly think in years to come, decades to come, we're going to look back on this dreadful pandemic and say, thank you to all those people and the losses that we've incurred. And I've got no doubt at all that it may well become somewhere where people can just go and sit for a few minutes if there's a bench or a few trees and the blossom comes out on this little space that we've identified. So if this is the right panel, then perhaps we could take it forward, Chair and Owen. If not, I'm still going to throw it out there. I think it might be a nice thing to do, but that will be up to others to cost, plan, identify the place and what we're going to do in recognition of both losses and support. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Councillor Coleman. And I agree with you completely. Whether there's something in the pipeline or not yet, I'm not too sure, but I will come to Councillor King in a moment. We have a wonderful Castle Park in the town centre where we have had memorials in the past, and there's plenty of space to do something like that in the future, I'm sure. Councillor King, please.
Thank you, Chair, and Councillor Phil Coleman. Thank you very much for raising it. I think all our hearts are in the same place on this, and it would be fantastic to do it and to have a conversation about exactly what would be best. But just on that specific, this National Trust were the people behind the version I saw of it, a healing circle of cherry trees, and I think that, frankly, I think that will be wonderful. And just say to the panel members, by all means, do come back to this. That's your right, and it would be good to have the encouragement. But as Rory and Rosa know, the list of things we have to do grows all the time, and we've already picked up on this, and so it's going to be looked at through the current vehicle will be the Woodland and Biodiversity Project. But obviously we'd take advice and consult widely about that. So it's on the checklist of things to do. It would be fantastic, done well. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much. It would be good to revisit. Councillor Warnes, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I just wanted to say that I would support some of memorial for those that have lost their lives during the pandemic. What some London boroughs have been doing is they've had a memorial wall. And as someone who is of the age where I had a grandfather that never returned from growing up as a child, having his name on the local wall was a focal point for me. So whilst I understand the idea of a circle of trees, etc., maybe fortunately where names can be put on an actual memorial for those loved ones that have lost people and may not be old enough to actually remember them, have a focal point where they can go and have a quiet moment, as I benefited from that as a child.
Thank you, Councillor Warnes. Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that completely. Councillor Arnold, your hand has come up above Councillor Davison. Is that a hangover hand, again, for want of a better word?
The hangover comes after the celebration later. Yes, it was an accident. I'll lower it.
Thank you. Thank you. Councillor Davison, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Really, just to say well done to Councillor Coleman for putting forward the idea. As Councillor King says, we're all very much of a like mind. There's been an awful lot of fantastic work gone on, both from the Borough Council and from all the services. Just to reassure everybody that with my mayor's hat on, that I am currently working with the High Steward and the administration to come up with a suitable occasion, I think. But we haven't at this stage determined what sort of memorial, if any, ought to be agreed. So if the panel wanted to consider that, that would be quite useful. But I'm very much hoping that once lockdown finishes in June, that we'll have an occasion, certainly before the autumn, to remember everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Davison, and that is welcome news. We've been very privileged to have the Mayor on with us this evening, so thank you. That's very helpful indeed. Okay, I don't see any more hands up. Owen, if you'd be kind enough just to put a notelet down regarding what has just been discussed, and we can come on to that next year. Whether I'm sitting in this chair or not, I don't know.
Would you like me to, Mr. Chairman, would you like me to note down a recommendation to Cabinet just that once they get to that point of having decided on a memorial option, just to inform members here, given the conversation, rather than having a recommendation that the panel formally consider it as it's already in.
Please, if it can be streamlined in any way, shape or form, that'd be welcome. Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
That'd be great. Okay, I think we're concluded for the evening then, if there's nothing else. I just want to say thank you very much. When I joined this panel last year, I'd never chaired a meeting before, and I know it was a bit shaky, but I hope it's improved somewhat. I like to keep this as open and as free and as fair as we possibly can. It's one of those committees where members of all colours and party stripes, for want of a better word, can share ideas and join together to make this borough as good as it can be. So thank you very much indeed, and I will see you all next year. Councillor Arnold, again, thank you very much indeed for your service to this borough over the last 26 years. And we'll
I think you kept it chucking along very nicely, Chairman.
That's kind of you. Thank you. Good night, everybody.
Good night. Thanks very much, Sam. Thanks, Rosa.
Good night, all.
Good night,
Thanks, Chris.
and farewell.
And farewell indeed.
All right.